Over the years, we've seen a number of high-profile people that have been disgraced for lying about their qualifications. And apart from the shame they suffered from the exposure, there were hardly any other consequences. Well, this is about to change as President Cyril Ramaphosa has signed into law tough new rules criminalising the submission of fraudulent qualifications or misrepresentation of education credentials. Job seekers and prospective students who submit fraudulent qualifications or misrepresent them will now face up to 5 years in prison in terms of the National Qualifications Framework, the NQF Amendment Act 2019. South Africa Qualifications Authority CEO Joe Samuels joins me now from our studios in Pretoria to tell us more. Thanks so much indeed for joining us, Mr. Samuels. Some would say that this is long overdue. This has been a problem for years.
Yes, look, that indeed is the case, that it is a problem, and I think, as you point out, that we had a number of high-profile cases where people have been, people have been misrepresenting the qualifications, and what the National Qualifications Framework Amendment Act that the President signed into law on the 13th of August. And published on the 19th of August, it outlines quite clearly what are offences in terms of this particular Amendment Act, as well as what possible penalties might be. Let me also hasten to say that the law is not in effect yet. That will become in effect once the President has proclaimed it as such. At the moment, it is as part of the general information to the public.
All right, tell us about, before we talk about the penalties, but give us a sense of what kinds of things specifically constitute a crime under this act.
Yeah, firstly, the important thing about the act is that it defines what is an authentic qualification. So an authentic qualification is a qualification that is registered on the National Qualifications Framework, and that secondly, the providers of this education and training, they must be registered with the Department of Education, as well as they must be accredited by a quality council. And then the third aspect of authenticity is that the qualification must be legally obtained by an individual. So, for example, if you have providers who are not registered and who are not accredited, they will be seen as illegal providers, and they will then be open to being placed on a register where they, of what would be misrepresented qualifications and providers. And also, if this matter is taken to a court of law, and the court of law finds that, they have fraudulently claimed to offer a registered qualification, or that they are accredited, that a court of law can either find them to be acting fraudulently, and hence they will then be open to a fine, and also in terms of they will be open to going to jail for a period.
So what happens if someone sets up an educational institution and is quite clear that this qualification, whilst it's good, is not registered with any authority, and you can't go around saying that you are qualified at XYZ, but offer this education anyway?
Well, as I'm saying, what the law is clearly making it very clear that this is not a genuine qualification. It's not an authentic qualification, and hence, both the person that has gone to this institution as well as the institution will be liable, for charges of fraud.
And is this right through the education system, from even preschool right through to university, or where is it placed?
It includes, the whole education and training system.
All right. So there is that area where, you know, when they talk about misrepresenting, when does embellishment become fraud? You know, when I exaggerate my qualifications.
Peter, look, I think these things are very clear. You know, if a qualification is registered on the National Qualifications Framework, it has got a unique title, it has got a level, and it's got a number of credits. And then, in addition to that, you would also then see what is it, you know, that the person, you know, knows, does, and understands. So all of those things are captured. So if you're talking about embellishment, you know, I'm not too sure, you know, how that would work. Possibly, a person might, for example, say that if you look at the transcript of the person, that instead of the person getting 50%, the person now says, look, I got 60% in terms of their certificate. But that also is misrepresentation.
All right, so and the other area, of course, on our CVs isn't just the qualifications, it's the experience that we say that we have. Will this fall into this when we misrepresent the experience that we have, that maybe I did these kinds of works and so on and so forth when I actually didn't?
Look, I think the Act is very clear. You know, it doesn't speak about experience or anything like that. I think that the media has had a big issue and a bit of fun by saying that, you know, if you lie on your CV, you know, then you're liable. The point is very simply that in this case, the Amendment Act deals with if you lie with regard to your qualifications, you know, so it is very clear.
All right, okay, so I think that that's quite an important difference. So in the section of your CV where you say, I have got matric, I have got a BA, I have got this, if that is not true, that's a crime.
Yes, can I just also say, Peter, very often people speak about a matric certificate. Now, I must say I've never seen a matric certificate. I've seen a national senior certificate or a senior certificate. What people generally mean if they say they've got a matric, it means that the level of pass that they've achieved allows them to apply to a university. You know, that is the, you know, the kind of old language. The new language is that if you achieve a bachelor's pass, that allows you to apply to university. But the shorthand that people use is to say, I've got a matric certificate. I'm saying that there isn't such a certificate. I'm yet to see it.
All right, so who will be doing the prosecuting? Is it somebody who finds out that the person that I've hired lied to me, and therefore I'm going to take them to the police to get some kind of restitution? Or how will this process work? Who will be the prosecutor against these people?
Well, generally, the way that you know, this issue has been functioning is that you know, for example, SAQA has got a directive from the Department of Public Service and Administration to verify qualifications of people working in the public service. So generally what will happen, a department will ask SAQA to verify a qualification of a person who has applied. Clearly the thing is it must be done in line with the privacy laws of the country. So the person must give consent that their qualification you know, should be verified. What we then also do, and what we will be doing going forward, is to then also warn the person that if you are now giving wrong information about your qualification, that your name may appear in a register of misrepresented qualifications. So therefore the person also needs to give consent with regard to that. Those processes are all there to say to the person, look, it's better that you really just state accurately what qualification you have. Then what happens is, if we find that the person's qualification is misrepresented, you know, SAQA can put the person onto, you know, such a register. We would then take that matter to the courts, and the court can then find if it's a fraudulent qualification or not. Let me also say that the Amendment Act is very clear that we must work very strictly in terms of the promotion of administrations of justice act and so on. The court of law can then decide whether the person is guilty of fraud or not, and then of course the penalties kick in, as it were. So I'm saying typically it will go through, you know, when people apply for employment. Right. What the law also provides now is that private companies, institutions, you know, if they look on the National Qualifications Framework database, which is called the NLRD, they must make sure that the qualification is registered. If, for example, they don't find it, they must then refer it to SAQA, and then we will then do the investigation and so on. And as I said, we will then act strictly according to the law, as it were, either to confirm that the qualification is genuine, or, you know, or the alternative.
All right. And then finally, perhaps, do you have the capacity to be testing qualifications that people say that they got abroad?
Yeah. Look, SAQA has been performing the function of the evaluation of foreign qualifications. We've been doing this for many, many years. You know, so we do have this evaluation function. When we say we evaluate a foreign qualification, we do two things. On the one hand, we check the authenticity thereof, so we verify whether it is real and so on. And then the second thing is we then place it within the National Qualifications Framework, so that you know, the local people, whether it's institutions of further learning, or whether it is an employer, or whether it's a professional body, they can see, you know, where the qualification fits into our National Qualifications Framework. So yes, the point is that we've been doing this for years.
All right, Mr. Samuels, thanks very much indeed for giving us some clarity on this proposed new legislation. Thanks for your time, sir. That was Joe Samuels, the Chief Executive Officer of SAQA.